Screech by TarynMcT. Read by Oakshadow5. Chapter 33. A week had passed since the day Present Mike and an unnamed UA student took down the villain who had killed All Might, all for one, and Sasaki Mirai was being summoned to UA to speak to Nezu. He didn't want to go. While Yagi Toshinori wasn't a name that was well known, to Mirai it was the name of one of his best friends, a friend he hadn't spoken to in nearly 5 years. Not since he had warned him of this exact event. He had told Toshinori that if he didn't retire, he would meet his end at the hands of a villain, and he ignored his warning. The funeral was beautiful, he had to admit, but he wished he had at least had the chance to say goodbye to his friend. Mirai had been ignoring Nezu's request for a visit for days now. He just wanted to stay at home and mourn the loss of the greatest man he'd ever known. But apparently, Nezu had gotten impatient and sent his intern Mirio today with a summons. Mirio was so much like Toshinori that he couldn't refuse to buy anything, even if it was just a message being passed down. So, here he was, walking up to the gates of UA, utterly miserable, and wishing he was anywhere else. He was met at the front gate by Eraserhead, who looked equally as miserable as Mirai. Odd. Mirai didn't think Eraserhead was a fan of All Might, so why would his death be affecting him like this?
Night Eye.
Eraserhead greeted with a tight nod.
Nezu's waiting for you.
I've been avoiding him, Mirai admitted.
He knows.
Eraserhead answered with a shrug.
He was willing to wait to talk to you, let you work through your grief, but Izuku kept insisting.
Mirai glanced at Eraserhead with a cocked eyebrow. Who?
You might know him better as Screech. He was the student who fought alongside Mike to take down that villain last week. According to him, All Might had a few final words for you. My ears were ringing so badly at that time, I couldn't hear anything, and Mike was relying on lip reading, so Izuku was the only one who heard him.
A final message? From Toshinori? For him? All of a sudden, Mirai felt bad for dismissing Nezu's request for a meeting. Maybe Toshinori had wanted to tell him who he had passed his quirk to, was trusting Mirai with the task of teaching the next Toda of One for All.
Whatever you're thinking the message is, it's probably not all that,
Eraserhead muttered.
He only had time for maybe a sentence or two.
They had reached the doors to Nezu's office, and Eraserhead hadn't even bothered to slow down. Instead, just kept walking as though the doors would open on their own automatically. They did. Mirai followed him into the office, where Nezu sat on a couch with a young teenager with green hair, playing a game of chess. The kid looked up at them as they entered, smiling briefly at Eraserhead, and then turned his attention back to the chessboard. I just don't think my analysis is all that useful, though. Nonsense, Izuku-kun, Nezu said happily and moved a piece. Your analysis needs some polishing, yes, but that is something we can easily work on between now and graduation. Besides, you cannot honestly tell me that you never once analyzed an opponent before you jumped in to fight them. The kid, Izuku apparently, flushed slightly and picked up a rock. Well, I mean, of course I did. I would need to figure out really quickly if the person I was fighting was weak or strong. I couldn't go all out if my opponent couldn't handle it. I wanted to catch the criminals I fought, not kill them. Exactly right. Nezu's knight took the rook Izuku had placed down. Your skills with analysis are one of the main reasons you are so accomplished as a vigilante. But I have looked through your notebooks, and I believe you can become so much more. You're already a fully licensed underground hero. Provisionally licensed, the kid corrected with a squeak. That's just a formality, and you know it, Nezu dismissed with a wave. I am wanting to train you so you can add analytical hero to your license as well. The kid scratched the back of his head. Isn't that a bit much, though? He asked. Mirai felt the kid was right. Underground and analytics? For some, yes, Nezu admitted. It's your move, Izuku-kun. Oh, right, sorry. The kid looked at the board for a moment and then moved his bishop. Check. Mirai's eyes went in shock. Some kid put Nezu into check? Nezu? Nezu took the bishop with the knight without blinking. While this is an ambitious goal, Izuku-kun, I feel you have the intelligence necessary to keep up with the training regimen I have planned for you. The kid glared at the board for a few moments and then sighed in defeat and knocked over his king. How can you say that when I can't even last more than 10 minutes against you? Nezu clapped his paws as Mirai collapsed into a chair. This kid was able to last 10 minutes against Nezu? You last longer than most, Izuku-kun. Nezu then turned his grin to Mirai. Sasaki-san, it's good to see you made it here eventually. I'd like to introduce you to my newest personal student, Midoriya Izuku. Izuku-kun, this is Sasaki Mirai, or as he's more commonly known, Sir Night-Eye. It's nice to meet you, Sir Night-Eye, Midoriya said. I wish it were under better circumstances, though. Mirai nodded. I hear you were the last person to speak with All Might before he... Mirai still couldn't make himself say the words. Midoriya nodded and... Did he just hoot? Oh, that's right. Eraserhead said this kid was Screech, and from what he remembered, Screech has an owl quirk. That makes sense. He wanted me to tell you he was sorry, and that you were right. Mirai lowered his head. He had already known he was right. His quirk was never wrong after all. He had seen Toshinori's death. No amount of wanting for things to be different would make things different. Thank you for passing his message, he whispered. Did he mention anything about who his successor is? Midoriya tilted his head a little too far to the side to be normal and chirped inquisitively. Nezu is the one who answered. He had spoken to me in depth about the student he had been wanting to pass it to, but I had insisted he speak to the student's guardians prior to making the offer. Unfortunately, to my knowledge, he never did approach Shota-kun or Hisashi-kun.
Approach us about what?
Eraserhead asked. It was a national secret, Nezu stated. Well, that means nothing now. It was the secret of Omid's quirk. It could be passed down, person to person. Omid was the 8th holder of it, and he had wanted to pass it to Izuku-kun. The sound the kid made at that could only be described as a mix between a squawk and a screech. He stared in stunned disbelief at Nezu, opening and closing his mouth with no words coming out, only various bird noises.
Are you trying to tell me?
Eraserhead calmly started, leaning forward.
That you want to dig with my son, my prospective underground hero son, one of the flashiest quirks in existence?
Midoriya started shaking his head frantically. No way I would have accepted. I'm already pretty strong on my own, and my quirk is already nearly too loud for the line of work I want to go into. He turned horrified eyes to Eraserhead. Can you just imagine me with that kind of quirk? Eraserhead started rubbing his temples.
I'm already dealing with a flashy husband way too high up in the rankings. I don't need a flashy son on top of that.
Nezu hummed in amusement and nodded his head. Yes, that is about what I expected from the both of you, and why I suggested for him not to approach Izuku-kun directly. Well, since he clearly did not pass one for all to Midoriya, Mirai spoke up again. Who has it now? No one, replied Nezu. The quirk died with Omid. Shota had not been prepared to deal with a grown-ass man breaking down into tears, but that was his day. He groaned in relief as he finally got home and collapsed onto the couch. Hey, Sho, are you okay? Hisashi asked as he came out of the kitchen. Shota glanced at the clock and saw it was about the time Zashi normally started on dinner.
Yeah, just a long day. Never would have thought I'd ever seen that I cry over Omid's quirk of all things.
He grumbled as he stood back up to give his husband a kiss. Oh, they mentioned that? Hisashi shrugged. Omid approached me about that the week of finals, and I told him even if he attempted to bring that flashy quirk anywhere near my son, either of my sons, he'd need to learn JSL because there would be no coming back from that hearing loss. Shota snorted and rested his forehead against Hisashi's shoulder.
I probably would have defenestrated him.
It was Hisashi's turn to snort. He ran his fingers through Shota's hair and said, Yeah, he hinted that I was the safe option to talk to. Since he knew there was no way in hell I was letting that quirk anywhere near the boys, I didn't bother mentioning it to you. He didn't approach Izuku about it, right? Shota shook his head.
Zuko was just as blindsided as I was when Nezu mentioned it, and he only did because Night Eye asked about it.
Shota pulled back from Hisashi.
Go finish dinner, and make sure the other thing is ready for after.
Izuku poked his head out of his bedroom door. What other thing?
Stop eavesdropping, you menace.
Shota smirked. Just like they had planned, Keiko dropped by a few minutes after dinner and kept the boys occupied while Hisashi packed up the leftovers and Shota got started on the dishes. They had 2 things to discuss with the boys, and 1 decision to make, and Hisashi hadn't been more excited in ages. When are you going to stop flying into billboards? Hisashi heard Hitoshi ask Keiko. Excuse me, but flying isn't as easy as it looks, he retorted. You have to take the wind direction into consideration, the temperature, any currents that are set to pop up, and all that while keeping an eye out for anyone needing help. There was an ad for KFC, wasn't there? Izuku giggled. Keiko huffed in embarrassment and muttered. Yes, there was an ad for KFC. Shota snorted as he finished drying the last dish.
You ready, Zashi?
He nodded. I'll go get it, he said, and ran to the bedroom to get the envelope. Soon, he was joining the others in the front room. Okay, kids, there's some news and a decision that needs to be made. Hisashi lightly typed on the envelope and then smirked. This will come second.
First,
Shota said, drawing most of their attention.
Nezu has decided to convert UA into a boarding school, so in a few days, we'll all be moving onto campus, into the newly built dorms. I'm going to be talking to the parents of all of 1A, and Zashi will be talking to all of 1C, so you won't be around much for the 2 days it'll take to go to all the families. Don't spread this to the other Hellspawn yet.
He glared at Hitoshi and Izuku until they both nodded.
Good.
Shota turned to Hisashi. Now it was his turn to deliver news. Izuku, you've been living with us since February, and it's now August. Do you remember, back in April, I told you that we were wanting to adopt you? Izuku's eyes widened, and he nodded, grabbing Hitoshi's hand in the process. Yes! Well, Hisashi continued with a huge smile. Part of the process is that you have to have been living with us for 6 months before the process can be completed, and it's been 6 months. He opened the envelope and handed Izuku the official adoption documents. You're ours now, baby bird. Izuku promptly burst into tears and lunged at Hisashi and Shota, wrapping them both up in a tight hug. Thank you, thank you, thank you. He managed to get out through his tears. Shota and Hisashi both had their arms tightly around Izuku, hugging him close, and they were soon joined by both Keigo and Hitoshi. You're stuck with us now, Zuko. Hitoshi laughed, face full of green hair. The 4 of them stayed like that for a good few minutes before Shota said,
The last thing is for you to make a decision, Izu. What's your new name going to be?
They all pulled back, but Izuku managed to squeeze himself between Shota and Hisashi. I hadn't really thought about it, he admitted.
When I was adopted, they didn't give me a choice.
Hitoshi interjected.
Both Dad and Papa were still fairly new heroes, and they didn't want to risk anyone linking me to them, so I got Dad's mom's name.
Keigo cocked his head. I thought Shinzo was your original name. Hitoshi shook his head.
I don't actually remember what it was. Before Dad found me, I was rarely ever called anything fit for polite company. The only reason I remembered my given name was because the teachers at school had me write my name on the classwork.
Hitoshi shrugged.
Doesn't matter though, I love my name now, and that's all I care about.
So, I can choose between Aizawa, Yamada, or Shinzo? Izuku asked. You can choose any name you want, Hisashi corrected. With a wink, he added, You can even choose Kaminari, if that's what your little heart wants. Papa! He shrieked, much to the amusement of the rest of the room, and buried his blushing face in Hisashi's shoulder. Izuku didn't pull away for a few minutes, but when he did, he had a thoughtful look on his face. I'm legally your son, and Toshi's legally my brother, but I also consider Keigo to be my brother. You better consider me your brother, Owlet, Keigo huffed with a smile. Izuku gave Keigo his biggest eyes and asked, Is it okay if I choose Takami for my name? That way, even if you aren't legally brothers, we're still brothers. Keigo started tearing up, and he opened his arms up for Izuku. Come here, little brother. Izuku jumped into his arms and held him tightly. Of course you can use Takami. Of course you can. Shota picked up the document from the floor where it had dropped during the family hug and wrote in Takami Izuku for their son's new name. Oh my gosh, this chapter was so cute. I was so close to crying at the end. Izuku got adopted, and he's Takami Izuku now. He took Hawks' name. And also, this is the 18th month anniversary of me making podfics, so as always, thank you all for listening, and I hope you continue to enjoy me making podfics. But anyways, guys, I hope you all enjoyed chapter 33 of Screech, and I see you all next time. Bye!